I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and tonight is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD. Good to be with you here tonight. This is a little bit of a different location than typical. I'm actually sitting in my dad's assisted living facility in Colorado Springs tonight. Dad is in a rehab facility and is going to be returning here tomorrow, so I came here to help facilitate some of his changes here. So anyhow, that's the different setting. I apologize. I don't have my high quality microphone. I don't have the great lighting I usually do. So hopefully this will still work out well for us tonight. For all of you that are here, welcome. And I'm glad to see that the many people are returning, which I believe means you're probably getting some good value out of this. And for those of you that are new, I'm glad to see that you're here willing to give this a try too. So there are two ways that you can participate in our webinar tonight. One is to see questions as I post them on the screen, and I will read them out loud too. For those of you that are in the live version, they will be seen on the screen. You can actually see them. So for instance, there's one that's posted up there right now by JR that I inadvertently posted already, but I can't unpost it now that it's there. So anyhow, anyhow, you'll see them on the screen, okay? But I'm going to read them out loud because in the recorded version they don't show up on the screen. I actually have to read them, and then and so you could see the responses I give to those questions. I usually do a lot of explanation of ideas, and in addition, just answering the question. The second way to participate in these webinars is to go bold and actually write a question. And the way you do that is there's a chat box down at the bottom of your screen on the right-hand side. You can use that to post your question to me. And the only thing that I ask is as you write your question, do not use your enter key to create paragraphs, all right? Each time that you actually click your enter key, it sends a separate question to me, all right? And that gets hard for me to follow from this side. As usual, I am creating a recording tonight's webinar, and if everything goes as planned, I will have it edited and send an email out to you in the morning, probably by around, tomorrow may be a little bit tighter, but maybe tomorrow may be by around 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, so Colorado Springs time. I've got to help get Dad back over here tomorrow morning. So, but I hope tomorrow morning you'll see an email come out from me announcing that the video is ready. It will also contain links to sign up for the next webinar, which is the following week. When you get those emails, send them out to other people that you think may get benefit. I love helping people, and the more people that show up here, the more impact we can make as a community as well too. I think that takes care of most of the information. Oh, this is one of 4 webinars that we're having in February. So this is the first one, and I actually plan on doing 4 of these in a row. So I look forward to helping you, okay? All right, without any further ado, let's go ahead and take JR's question, which should be posted on your screen already. So JR says, what natural remedies have you seen to be effective in sinus infection that is seemingly only in the left nose with a yellow, smelly discharge? Thank you. I'm not even sure if this product is still offered. Anyhow, there is a product called Phytobiotic. It's a Phyto, Biotic. I think it's by Wise Woman Herbals. Let me, we'll look it up here in a minute, okay? Anyhow, that can be an herbal antibiotic combination that can be effective against sinus infections. But in addition to taking an herbal antimicrobial, one thing that can sometimes help also is to do a nasal irrigation with a saltwater nose spray. You can actually buy saltwater nose sprays at the pharmacy, and then you spray it through the sinuses. Another way to do that is a more useful way is to do something called a neti pot. It looks like a little teapot, and you put a saltwater mixture into this teapot, put one side in your nose, and you literally run it through your nose, and it actually loops back around and irrigates out the other side. And that can pull some of that infection out as well too, all right? In my experience, using herbal antibiotic protocols like this to treat for sinus infections work maybe about 60% of the time. So if you're not making much improvement, say in about 7 to 10 days, you might want to reach out to your primary care doctor and consider a course of prescription antibiotics for that as well too. All right, let me go ahead and do a screen share here. All right. So I want to show, we're going to look up that product. I want to see if it's still in existence here. There we go. All right. So do a quick search here. So we're going to do phytobiotic by, I think it's Wise Woman. Yeah, it still is. So when I used to do primary care, family medicine, and I was treating things like sinus infections, I would use this product. Okay, and I used to have good outcomes doing that. And then let me just see how they're currently recommending it too. Yeah, I agree with how they recommend on the bottle. They're saying 2 capsules 2 or 3 times a day. I found most benefit doing it as 2 capsules 3 times a day. Okay. It looks like this one website is out. I'm not going to take time to hunt around, but you can look at the label here and see the various herbs in here that give some benefit. And if you can't find this actual product, see if you can find another product that has some of these components in it as well too. Okay. All right. All right. Hopefully that'll give you some help there. Thanks for the question. Hello, MM. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. I took low-dose naltrexone after having COVID, and it completely resolved my long COVID. Hooray. I continue to stay on 4.5 milligrams. Do you think that this reduces my risk of long COVID moving forward, or that because I'm on the LDN, I am less likely to get long COVID? So low-dose naltrexone can be helpful in long COVID for a couple reasons. So naltrexone, everyone, or low-dose naltrexone, therefore naltrexone, is something we use to regulate the immune system. And it can also help, and it can help with 2 things. One is it can help lower cytokine inflammation. And the other thing it can do is it can help regulate mast cell activation. So let me talk about both of those, okay? So first of all, what naltrexone is a drug that was developed to help with alcoholism and drug treatments. We use it at a low dose, meaning 4.5 milligrams instead of the 50 milligram pill that it's made as, to help regulate the immune system. All right. And that's a simplified description of it. I can show you an article where you could read more about it here in a minute. When you have long COVID, one component of the symptoms is that your immune system continues to overproduce cytokines. Cytokines are good chemicals and bad chemicals. Okay, so cytokines are made in excess in Lyme. Cytokines are made in excess in mold toxicity and yeast overgrowth, and in long COVID, they're made in excess too. The reason white blood cells make cytokines is they're made by white blood cells when they see an invader. And their purpose is to turn on the immune system to fight that invader. But if the immune system is not doing well enough, or if it sees a persistent infection, or in the case of COVID, either if it sees a persistent infection or if it sees persistent spike proteins, it's going to keep making too many cytokines. And too many cytokines give you fatigue, make it so you can't think, make you hurt all over, disturb your hormonal functions, et cetera. It basically gives you the mess of symptoms that we see in long COVID and chronic Lyme disease, chronic tick-borne infections, and in mold toxicity. Okay. All right. So you want to regulate the cytokines. And one way to do that is low-dose naltrexone has a way of modulating the immune cells that make cytokines. All right. It doesn't stop them from producing them, but it balances out cells that make those cytokines. All right. Second thing that we think happens in long COVID for some people is that COVID may trigger what is known as mast cell activation syndrome, which is also something that can happen in Lyme. All right. So you can see there's a lot of parallels between these chronic conditions. Okay. So there is a type of cell called a mast cell. And mast cells, historically, we always thought were involved in allergies. So if something you're allergic to lands on a mast cell, that would trigger the mast cell to make histamines. And then you get all of those allergic reactions like runny nose, itchy eyes, sometimes hives. Okay. All right. We now know, though, that these mast cells also can be activated by infections. And when they get activated by infections, they overproduce the histamines, which give you fatigue, give you some of the brain fog. In addition, though, these mast cells are huge producers of cytokines too. Okay, so you want to regulate those mast cells often when somebody has long COVID. And the way that low-dose naltrexone does that is it binds to there's a receptor on mast cells called toll receptors. And then naltrexone binds to those toll receptors and it decreases their activation, basically. All right. So that's how LDN can work. Now, if you've got your symptoms under control, so basically you may have turned down this overly ramped up mast cell and cytokine producing system. Okay. All right. How long is a useful period of time to use it after you feel better? Generally, when I'm using low-dose naltrexone, I like to use it at a minimum of 6 months. Even if somebody's starting to do better, I find best results using it for a minimum of 6 months, all right? In and of itself, it's not going to prevent long COVID. It's not going to prevent you from getting COVID and getting long COVID activated again, but it can help regulate those symptoms, okay? All right. Good luck to you, MM. Why am I not able to? Oh, I see what's happening here. Hold on, everyone. I got a little bit of a setup problem here. Now I see what's happening. Okay, now I see why I couldn't get rid of the question I had on the screen earlier. I had my screen set up wrong. Anyhow, let me get rid of MM's question here. MM, thank you. Good luck. All right, let me just see here. All right, so next question is from Nancy. Hello, Nancy. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thanks for all you do! Exclamation point. I appreciate that. Question is about chelating metals after Bartonella. I was very sick in 2018 from Bartonella and treated heavily with antibiotics for 16 months, along with many supplements and herbal antimicrobials. Since 2021, I have been feeling good, no symptoms. In 2021, my T labs still showed BART and biofilms, but I guess they are living in homeostasis in my body. I have also been taking various binders since 2016, as Mosaic labs still show high ochratoxins and high citrinin, but also no symptoms. In addition, my functional med doc had tested for heavy metals, and my mercury levels are very high, as well as lead and thallium. I do not eat farm-raised salmon and only low mercury fish. I exercise daily, eat very healthy, and use an infrared sauna 3 times a week. I do everything I can think of detox, yet my body is holding on to metal and mold. Question. My doc now wants me to do a DMSA chelation to rid myself of metals. However, I'm terrified that might wake up. Let me see, Nancy, if I can find a second part to your question here. Here we go. Terrified it might wake up sleeping Bart and cause me to be sick all over again. Is this possible? If biofilms are disturbed also, I think chelation only gets the metals out of parts of your body where it is hiding, but it's your detox system that has to get the circulating metal out of the body. Apparently, my detox system is not working well in spite of all I do due to my continued high mold and metals. However, I feel well. I would be doing the metal chelation because of trying to prevent Alzheimer's, as I have family history and am APOE3/4. In your opinion, is there a risk of waking up Bartonella if I do chelation, which I would for Alzheimer's prevention? My functional med doctor has no idea, as he's not a Lyme literate medical doctor. Okay, good question. So, it's a tricky situation you're in because if you have positive testing, yet you have no symptoms, you could make an argument why treat. And yet I get with the Alzheimer's risk, I think that throws a different thing in here, but I'm just making a global comment, okay? Because it is true. Our bodies can put things into balance or keep things under control. So they can control Bartonella that's still living in us. They can control mold toxicity and keep it regulated as well too. Our body can do that, all right? And so when we treat somebody for those conditions, my goal is to restore health. Well, your health is already restored, okay? But you're raising a different question, which is you want to try to prevent another outcome down the road, which is Alzheimer's, all right? Regarding mold and regarding the Bartonella, we have no data that tells us if they're still in you and you don't treat and you feel good, what's the risk they will get active and cause you problems down the road? We have no data on that. Generally, though, in my practice, I chose only to treat a person to get their health status well, not necessarily to eradicate everything, because in some instances you may not be able to with Bartonella, for instance. Okay. Now, the issue you're raising is, will DSMA also break down biofilm? All right, because part of that biofilm may be what keeping your Bartonella at bay, hiding it, if you will, so that it's not reactivating the immune system or activating the immune system and giving you symptoms. Okay, and it's also keeping it from necessarily spreading, if you will, too. So when we look at what biofilms are made of, biofilms are very complex structures. They are made up of a protein skeleton made out of a blood clotting protein called fibrin. They also have a mucopolysaccharide slime that is basically the sugary substance that makes up the glob of all this stuff, all right? There's a bunch of other bacteria that live in these biofilms that all have different functions. Some of the bacteria focus like the post office, some of them focus like the bank. So they all have very specific functions that they're doing. There's these export systems that carry garbage out and tubes that carry food in. Okay, these are complex structures. And within the mucopolysaccharide structure, there are some heavy metals possibly, or minerals that make those up. If we look at things that have been studied that actually truly break down biofilms, chelation is not really shown to break down biofilms. There's a theoretical risk or a theoretical idea that somehow, because biofilms have in them minerals, that if we pull those minerals out, that will break down biofilm, but we have no science that proves that. Okay. I cannot give you a perfect answer here. I'll be honest with you. I'm not, I think you're going to have to weigh out risk and benefits. All right. There is a risk potentially, but not proven by any science, that if you pull minerals and heavy metals out of your biofilm, they may partially break down. I would not call chelation the strongest way to break down a biofilm. Okay. Stronger ways of breaking down biofilm include using methylene blue, using various antibiotics sometimes can, using enzymes like lumbrokinase and nattokinase can help break down the fibrin skeleton. That you can use serrapeptase can break down some of that sugar slime layer. Okay, those are probably the stronger ways. I wouldn't necessarily say that if chelation does break down biofilm, that probably would be the strongest way of doing it. All right, but there is a risk. I have to admit there is a risk. And then, but also you have a risk then of getting Alzheimer's if you continue to have the high heavy metals as well too. And I don't have a perfect answer for you. I think if you were to choose to do it, of all the biofilm breakers, I would say chelating agents probably are some of the weaker biofilm breaking agents. It doesn't mean they don't. And if your Bartonella were to get active again, you can always go at it using herbal or prescription antibiotics, but you've already been down that road. I'm not sure if that's what you want to do for yourself. So I can't tell you the right way. It's a risk-benefit consideration. Okay. Good luck to you. I'm sorry you're having to go through that. Hello, Julia. Hold on here just a minute. Hi, Dr. Ross. I'm working with my MD to follow your protocol. I've been treating Lyme and co-infections for 10 years. I started the Tier 1 Bartonella approach in October, and I'm still unable to tolerate the full doses. I can only do 1 rifampin per day, and cannot tolerate lumbar kinase at all, but tolerating everything else okay. My question is, when you talk about number of months that it typically takes on a protocol, does that mean after you reach the full recommended doses? I know you say to stop protocol after a certain time period if it's not working, but does that time period mean once you've been able to do the full dosing? For example, in my case, my doctor and I interpret the protocol as 6 months on tier 1 BART approach with lumbar kinase included. So I'm wondering if I would start the 6-month clock after I have the full dose of everything on board. Thank you for all you do. That's a good question. All right. So you have to keep in mind when this protocol I've written is for an average situation. And no one is average, but for the average person and how they respond. Okay. So I'm going to raise a couple points with you here. So sometimes the reason that people can't get to full doses is that they may have some impairment of their ability to detox out these antibiotics. So, antibiotics are toxins, if you will, and your liver and your kidneys are supposed to remove those. And so what determines how much is in your blood and how much is in your blood, what determines how much killing you get, is based on how much do you take and how well your kidneys and liver can remove them. All right. In the case of rifampin, it's the liver that removes them. Okay. But some antibiotics are also cleared out by the kidneys. All right. So when I see that somebody is really sensitive, it may mean that they don't need as much to maintain a killing level in their blood because they don't remove as much. All right. So if I've got a person I'm working with in my practice and we can only get them up to 1 rifabutin and that's it, and I can only get them up to half a lumbar kinase, and no matter what I do, that's it. That the max dose I can get them to without clobbering them is what I would call the starting point of when you start doing that 6-month time clock. Okay. All right. Secondly, regarding 6 months, that is when it comes to treating Bartonella for the average person, 4 to 6 months usually is going to eradicate Bartonella. There are, however, about 15% of people that have chronic Bartonella that doesn't respond well. All right. And so there are groups of people that Bartonella can become a 1 year, a 2 year, maybe even more treatment to get it under control. All right. So when I write in that protocol about an average being 6 months or a treatment length 6 months, that's an average. That's what works well, probably for about 85% of people. But there's 15% of people you have to go longer. Okay. I hope that gives you some information to work with you and your doctor then too. Okay. Good luck. Hello, Lynn. Let's see. I have a history of chronic Lyme that lasted 8 years and luckily ended 10 years ago. I just finished week 2 of my first bout of COVID, and the only symptoms were fever, headache, dramatic fatigue, and brain fog. The fatigue and brain fog got worse in the second week and come and go, similarly to my 8 years of chronic Lyme, when I also had many other and much worse symptoms. I wonder if currently this fatigue and brain fog is the result of cytokines rather than ongoing infection, and how to treat this at this point, if that is what it is, while also taking steps to ensure that the bug is dead, i.e. how to do anti-inflammatory and inflammatory treatments at once, or how to decide which way to go. Okay, so I've seen, so I'm trying to remember the data here. So in the end, of all people that have COVID, it's about 1% that have persisting long COVID symptoms by, I think it's around 5 months or 6 months. Okay. So most people that have some degree of COVID symptoms by about 6 months, I think it's only 1% that go on to develop what we truly call long COVID. Okay. By, I think it's 3 months after COVID, about 80 to 90% of people have gotten rid of their COVID symptoms. Okay. Now I'm not perfect on my stats here, but I'm just trying to give you an idea. So when you first get COVID and how quickly you recover, generally within the first 2 weeks, there's not much recovery at all. The main symptoms people are going to have is that fatigue you're describing, tiredness, some of the muscle achiness, etc. And usually that stuff takes on its own about 1 to 2 months to go away. And by 3 months, I think it's for like 90% of people, all of those symptoms are gone. All right. All right. So it may just be a matter of waiting. Okay. But a lot of those symptoms are, you are correct, are due to excess cytokines. And it's the excess cytokines also can therefore then suppress the immune system, making it hard for the immune system to deal with the infection or to get over the infection as well too. So what I like to do within the first month to 2 months of people having a lot of symptoms related to their COVID, I like to use glutathione. Glutathione is a very strong antioxidant that is used by the liver to help with detox, but it also can help lower cytokines. And the way that it does that is it blocks the oxidizing agent signals that tell white blood cells to make cytokines. And if you lower the messenger going to the cytokine factories, the white blood cells, you won't have as much produced, okay? And the thing you have to keep in mind with, excuse me here, the thing you have to keep in mind with glutathione is that it has to be absorbed. And most of us will destroy it in our gut unless it's prepared to be absorbed, all right, and to get through the gut. And so you want to use a liposomal variety, and liposomal means it's microscopically wrapped in fat to increase absorption. The product that I like to do that is a product made by Research Nutritionals, and it's called TriFortify. They have got great science showing increased absorption. They've done red blood cell absorption studies, for instance, okay? So that's TriFortify. You can get it as an orange or a watermelon, and it's manufactured by Research Nutritionals. And I like to go kind of high dosing on that. I like to do a teaspoonful twice a day. That's kind of high dosing, okay? The other thing I like to do in these situations is to work to lower cytokines. And knowing these days that COVID can trigger mast cell activation, what I'd like to use is quercetin to lower cytokines because it also is a mast cell stabilizer, all right? And so quercetin gets inside of white blood cells and limits the factory production line that leads to cytokines. And again, it stabilizes mast cells so they're not making all those histamines as well too. So the way I like dosing quercetin is it comes as a 250 milligram pill, and I like to have people take it as 2 pills 3 times a day. Okay. All right. So I'd suggest that. Those are 2 things I would suggest, and they may help you feel better more quickly. But what I want to let you know is that probably by around 3 months, 90% of people that have these longer symptoms that come after having COVID, and I think it's about 90% of the time, they're all gone by about 3 months. And sometimes it's just a waiting game. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Yeah. Anyhow, let me do a quick screen share here for you. Okay, so this is my supplement store and Marty Ross MD supplements. And these are products I have used in my practice in Seattle when I was practicing on my patients. So I know they work. I trust the quality. So if you're looking for products that have been tried and tested, and also ones that I consider to be high quality because I've gone out and studied these, take a look here and you can see what I'm using, okay? So that's one way you can use my site is use the search bar up here and see which quercetin product I carry, okay? The other thing you can do is buy from me. And reasons to buy from me is I sell these as low as is allowed by the manufacturers. And if I try to sell lower than the prices I offer, manufacturers won't let me carry their products. But to make it even less or more affordable for you, because I know this is our expensive products, I cover your taxes if you're in the States, and I also pay for free shipping to the United States if your total order is $50 or more. Okay, so I welcome people ordering, and if you want to, that helps support these webinars, for instance, as well too. Okay, all right. But in terms of this TriFortify product I was telling you about. This is the TriFortify products that are offered by Research Nutritionals. There's a TriFortify orange, a watermelon, and then I have some single dose packets as well too. Okay, all right. And then the quercetin product that I was talking about is made by Thorne Research, and it's called quercetin phytosome. Okay? All right. Oh, and then one last thing. I know I've mentioned LDN and mast cell activation earlier. So if you're looking for more information about low-dose naltrexone, you could just write LDN in my search bar here and you'll find my article. That's my article on low-dose naltrexone. And then finally, if you're looking for my article on mast cell activation, if you look at my immune system section here, and then scroll down to my article on mast cell activation syndrome. Okay. All right. All right. Let me get back here again. All right. Thanks for the question, Lynn. Good luck to you. Hello, Joe. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thank you for your webinars. You're welcome. I always look forward to them. I appreciate that. My question is two parts. First, does a person have genetic rheumatoid arthritis if they have a high rheumatoid factor, or can a high rheumatoid factor be caused by Bartonella? And second, would having a DNA test for a rheumatoid arthritis gene help me understand how far I will probably be able to go with Bartonella treatment in regards to rheumatoid arthritis symptoms or cure? When I asked where I could get a DNA test, my non-Lyme literate rheumatoid arthritis doctor said he wouldn't know where to get one and why would I need it when I have rheumatoid arthritis. My Lyme Bartonella doctor, who also happens to be a rheumatologist, did not answer the gene question at all. Thanks for taking my questions. All right. So I'm not aware that there is a genetic test you can do for rheumatoid arthritis. Okay, but if there is, let me just say a few things about it. So when you're doing genetic testing, you're looking to see if you have genetic material that predisposes you to having a condition. It doesn't mean you will get the condition, because you can kind of think of your DNA, your genetic material, as a blueprint, like a blueprint for building a house, okay? But for that house to get built, there have to be your construction people that interpret it. And then there's wind and rain that blow on some day that may alter something. And then somewhere along the way, a designer comes in and says, I want to do something a little bit different compared to that original plan. And what I mean by that, that would be things like environmental factors or certain foods and things you drink that may alter the signal that come from your genes, okay? So whether you develop the exact looking problem as that you're programmed to have with rheumatoid arthritis may or may not happen. So having a genetic blueprint does not mean you will manifest the problem. There's a lot of things that can get in the way that block the manifesting of the problem, all right? So I just want to let you know that, all right? The best you can say is if you do get a gene test, I'm not even sure if there is one, but let's say you get one and it comes back positive, it says you have a predisposition to getting rheumatoid arthritis. Now, regarding rheumatoid factor, so rheumatoid factor is a blood test we can do to see if you may have rheumatoid arthritis. The trouble is this rheumatoid factor blood test can be triggered to be positive by having tick-borne infections as well too. So just having, getting a rheumatoid factor, if you happen to have tick-borne infections, it may not be that you actually have expression of your rheumatoid arthritis genes. It just may mean that the Bartonella or Lyme triggered a positive rheumatoid factor and give you a medical symptom checklist of things that look like rheumatoid arthritis, okay? So because we cannot really say when somebody has Bartonella or Lyme, whether they test positive rheumatoid factor and they have all the symptoms that look like rheumatoid arthritis, it may still be that ultimately it's the infections that triggered all that. And if you get the infections under control, it will take care of it, right? But it's also possible you can have these tick-borne infections and as a separate problem, not related to having the tick-borne infections, you have rheumatoid arthritis. The trouble is the gene test will not clarify that for you, because even though you may have the genes, they may not be expressed. They may be manipulated and turn out with a different result. All right. So I don't know that you get your answer. In these situations, what I like to do is treat for the tick-borne infections and see if we get resolution of the rheumatologic condition. And sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. Okay. All right. I know that may be confusing how I just explained, but I hope that gives you some answers on that. Okay. All right. Good luck. Hello, Nancy. Oops, I think we answered that. That was your second part of your question. Let me get rid of that. Hello, Michelle. Let's see here. Hold on here a minute. Let's see. My 16-year-old daughter's complete thyroid panel came back in limits, except her reverse T3 was slightly elevated above limits. She is currently treating Lyme and Bart. Any insight? Thank you for all you do. Okay, so a thyroid panel, blood testing panel, can include some of these following things. Okay, I'm just going to list them out. One test that it can do is something called a thyroid stimulating hormone. That's called TSH. And we can also measure the hormones made by the thyroid gland, which are T3 and T4. And then we can also measure thyroid antibodies to see if you might have something called Hashimoto's. And finally, we can measure something called reverse T3. All right, let me explain all of these to you, okay? So TSH is a chemical that is made by an area of your brain called the hypothalamus pituitary. And the brain makes TSH in response to how it is interpreting whether you have enough thyroid or not, okay? And if the brain thinks your system does not have enough thyroid, it will start making excess, large amounts of TSH, okay? So high TSH means you have low thyroid. I know that can be very confusing, but think of it as like when you're yelling at your kid because they don't hear you. The more you think they don't hear you, you yell even louder so they get the message, okay? Brain works the same way. If the brain thinks that the thyroid is not listening to it and making enough thyroid, it's going to start screaming at the thyroid, which gives you that high TSH. Okay. Your T3 and T4 thyroid, so your thyroid gland, which sits here in the neck, about 90% roughly of what it makes is T4 thyroid, and about 10% is T3 thyroid. All right. And there's two major differences between T4 and T3. The most basic difference is T4 has 4 iodine particles on it, and T3 has 3 iodine particles on it. Okay, so that's the basic difference. All right. But the other big difference is the active form of thyroid, what works in your cells to power up your cells, to make your cells run. What makes your body run is T4. All right. Now keep in mind what I just said. 90% of what your thyroid gland makes is T4, but yet what is needed in your cells is T3. T3 is what gives you your energy, basically. All right. So at the cellular level, inside your cells, T4 has to be converted into T3. All right. Now, your T4 actually has a choice. All right. T4 can decide to be converted into T3, or your T4 can be converted into reverse T3. And we think of reverse T3 as being, or I think of reverse T3 as kind of being what the body uses to put itself into hibernation when it's not doing well. So you can kind of think of the body as like wanting to hibernate, slow you way down so that you can rest and overcome whatever your healthcare problem is. All right. That's how I look at it. Okay. So, all right. So then one other thing, you have to keep in mind when your labs are reported as normal, that's a range. So your TSH can range, for instance, from 0.4 to 5 is what most labs will say is normal. Most of us that treat chronic Lyme only think up to 2.5 is normal. Okay, but it's a range, all right? your T4 also has a range, and your T3 has a range. If you look at your lab results, it'll give you the number, and then it will say a range of what they consider normal range, right? Well, just because you're in normal range and the lab says it's normal, that may not be your normal when you're under optimum health, okay? All right. So what I would say is if you're having fatigue as part of your symptoms, and even though you have normal tests, if there's still room for your T4 or your T3 to be higher in that normal range, given that you have a high reverse T3, which already tells me you're not adequately converting T4 to the T3, which is active in your cells, I would suggest giving T3. And the T3 prescription you can use is a product called Cytomel. It's a prescription. Usually you start at 5 micrograms twice a day, and sometimes you can go higher. Your goal is to get the reverse T3 into normal range, and then also follow your symptoms. See if symptoms that look like low thyroid start getting better as you do that too, okay? And symptoms that look like low thyroid could be weight gain, could be fatigue, could be hair loss, could be a slow reflex at your knee. Those are some symptoms that you can follow to see if you're making some difference. But ultimately, after a month of being on Cytomel, your docs are going to want to come back and retest and see what happened to that reverse T3. Okay. So the few teaching points here: normal range does not mean normal for you. All right. And a high reverse T3 means you're not getting adequate conversion of all that T4 into T3. So there's something wrong there, okay? And so you want to give T3 to help correct for that, okay? All right. Good luck to you. Oh, for anyone that wants to read more about this, I have a pretty extensive article on thyroid, how you interpret test results, and how you treat some of these conditions as well, too. Let me see here. I'm going to get there. There we go. All right. So take a look at, this is my Lyme guide again, and take a look in the hormone section right there. And then take a look at this article called It's Tricky, How to Diagnose and Treat Low Thyroid, where I review all the testing and the various ways you can support your thyroid gland as well too. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Michelle. Or good luck to your 16-year-old daughter, I should say. Hello, Andrew. Hi, Dr. Ross. Have you heard of someone developing daily fever spike with chills and tremors that last 15 to 20 minutes while being on disulfiram? No, I have not. So I have not seen that happen. And I did use quite a bit of disulfiram in my practice for a while. I don't anymore. I don't think the end outcomes for most people are that good. And I think it's a risky drug in terms of bone marrow suppression, but also I've seen too many people develop a severe neuropathy that doesn't reverse after you stop it. So it's not one of my favorite drugs, but when I was using a lot of it, I did not see that type of symptom occur with it. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Thanks for answering that question, or asking that question, I should say. Anna says, hi, Dr. Ross. Hello, Anna. All right. And then Lynn says she doesn't have audio, and yet I don't have anyone else saying that. So, Lynn, I hope you have worked out your audio question there. Hello, Ala, or Ayla. I'm not sure how you say that. I apologize if I botched that up. I noticed your natural approach to Bartonella and other diseases is much more condensed than Buhner or Rawls protocols. Research papers rarely look at the impact of Hootenannia and Psittacuta on Bartonellosis. What made you arrive at that combination that you outlined? So the Hootenannia and Psittacuta are a large part of Buhner's protocol, okay? That's where I got it from. But also I add to that by using the liposomal cinnamon, clove, oregano as well too. the reason I added the liposomal cinnamon clove oregano to this, the two key herbal antibiotics in the Buhner protocol, is that Buhner, when he wrote his books, was not aware of persisters in the world of Bartonella and in the world of Lyme. So let's talk about that real quickly. So historically, we only thought the germs existed in a growing state. We now know from research that's come out over the last 5 to 6 years that there are a small percentage, maybe 10%, maybe more, that over time move out of these growing phases into a hibernating or persister state. And these persisters have generally ignored most standard antibiotics that we use, all right? I will tell you, no one has done research to say whether Hutania or Sida acuta handle persisters. They may, we just don't know, okay? We do have research now that says that cinnamon clove oregano alone or in combination can deal with both Lyme and Bartonella persisters, and they deal with growing Lyme and growing Bartonella as well too. There's another advantage to using the cinnamon clove oregano in that it breaks down biofilm, all right? Now, a large part of Buhner is also doing things that are designed to boost your immune system. I just don't follow his herbs that boost the immune system. If you look at my protocol, the way that you boost the immune system is get sleep. I tell you, there's things to do to get sleep. I talk about lowering cytokine inflammation. That helps boost your immune system. I talk about getting rid of a common infection that can that many people have. That's intestinal yeast overgrowth, and if you can clear that, that helps boost the immune system. So the key steps that I have in my protocol are all designed to boost the immune system. I just don't do it in a similar way to what Buhner and even Rawls does, basically. Okay, and I have found my protocol to work. So that's based on clinical experience. Buhner, obviously, I think is a master herbalist. In many ways, I think he almost threw too many things at the problems. If you look at, I'm scaled back because people can't afford time-wise and financially to do all those parts of a Buhner protocol. All right, that's kind of where I go. And again, the big difference is I throw in the cinnamon clove oregano. Okay, all right. Thanks for that question. Good luck to you. So everyone, let me just do a quick screen share here. So if you're wondering what this protocol is that we were talking about, all right, so this is Treat Lyme again. This is my Lyme information site. You would want to take a look at my Lyme protocol here, all right? And in here are the basic steps you should do. And this is for any tick-borne infection. So number one, you want to do things to get sleep. That boosts the immune system, okay? Number two, you want to be on a diet that helps support lower inflammation in your immune system. Number three, do things to lower cytokines. Number four, be on an adaptogen, an herb that boosts your body and helps your body deal with stressful situations. In this case, I like ashwagandha. Number five, correct hormonal imbalances that you may have. And that could be adrenal or thyroid. That helps your immune system work better. Number six, be on a good multivitamin. That helps your immune system work better. Anyhow, you can walk through this. These are steps you want to do in addition to killing the germs. That's my approach to helping the immune system versus Buhner is extremely herb heavy in that regard. Okay? All right. All right. Thanks for that question, Andrew. Hello, Dawn. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. If someone has many toxic issues happening at once, is there an order to best remove toxins from the body? Specifically, mycotoxins, Lyme, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, Bartonella babesia, Epstein-Barr, environmental toxins, Salmonella, Candida, aluminum, and other heavy metals. Two, suggestions for helping body detox for those with double MTHFR, or what to avoid. 3, stabbing heart pains. Is this BART or Rocky Mountain spotted fever symptom? Currently using Hawthorne. Anything else for helping the heart? 4, brain health. Does Lyme create acquired brain injury? Suggestions. Okay, so there's a lot of questions here. So first of all, if you take a look at my protocol that I just showed you, I walk through the key steps to do it first, okay? And that includes initially going, I say in there that I even talk about regarding mycotoxins. I only will start after mycotoxins first if, based on the history, it looks to me that person didn't get sick until they had their mold exposure. In that case, I'll try to clear toxins first because I may not even need to treat for Lyme and co-infections, okay? My protocol mainly focuses on getting rid of yeast right away as an infection, and then also doing basic detox steps, not going after mold toxins right away, et cetera, and treating your key tick-borne infections of Lyme, Bartonella, and or Babesia right up front, okay? Keep in mind that often the steps you take for Lyme will clear the Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Regarding viruses, I don't even really do anything about viruses until about 9 months or more, because many of these chronic viruses that we test for are actually found in healthy people. So just having antibody reactions does not prove that your chronic viruses are active. It just means your immune system is doing what it's supposed to, which is keep them under control. It is possible by having tick-borne infections they get more active, but there's no decent way to test for that. And so my approach is deal with your tick-borne infections and do all those other immune supports that I was just showing you. And then usually what happens is the immune system steps in and puts those viruses under control. The mycotoxins, if you don't have a really clear history of having mold exposures that led to your health decline, I usually don't even come back and test for them until about 6 months into treatment if somebody's not getting better. Okay, all right. But you can find all of that's built into my protocol. Heavy metals, I just don't find usefulness in going after them, even if they're elevated. I say that kind of as a year 1 to 2 if somebody's not getting better. Salmonella, I don't find to give you chronic issues. And Candida, as I said, I address that upfront in my protocol. Okay. Let's see. Suggestions for helping body detox for those with the double MTHFR and what to avoid. So I have to caution you that having a genetic problem does not mean you have a manifestation of that problem. All right. So just because you have a genetic mutation that says that you will have difficulty making an enzyme called methotetrahydrofolate reductase, all right, doesn't mean that your body does not have another way of making what that enzyme should help produce, all right? So that enzyme is critical in this. MTHFR is an enzyme that is responsible for taking folate from your diet and converting it into an activated folate, a methylated folate, okay? All right. And so if you have that genetic defect, you may not be able to make enough methylated folate, and methylated folate is needed for some detox reactions, basically. But many of us over the years have gone down the road of trying to treat for that by giving you the methylated folate. And I think most of us have found poor benefit in doing that. All right. I just want to say that. All right. And I think the reason we found poor benefit in it is I think that for many of us, we have to keep in mind that our body is designed to maintain health. And we have this other organ in our body called the gut microbiome. And notice I just called it an organ. All right. So all those germs living in your intestines, your gut microbiome, the viruses, the parasites, the bacteria, and even healthy yeast that live there are there because we get something out of them. All right. And to put this in context, 90% of the genetic material in our bodies is the germs that live in our intestines, the gut microbiome. 90%. All right. That's huge. And we are learning more and more about that gut microbiome. But what we know is it has many functions. It helps with digestion. It makes chemicals that regulate the brain. It makes chemicals that regulate your immune system. It helps clear things we're allergic to. I mean, it's huge things that it does. And one of the things it could do is literally manufacture the things that our bodies are not able to on their own. So what I have to say is I've been very disappointed by trying to use nutrients like methylated folate to treat a double MTHFR, and I have stopped doing it. I don't chase those anymore. I just find it to be it doesn't give benefit, and I think it's because it's probably not a real how can I say this? It's not a problem producing symptoms in people. I think that our microbiome makes up for some of those problems on its own. Okay, that's my opinion on it. All right, then let's see here. Stabbing heart pains. I would say that's probably more related to Bartonella than Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and the treatment would be treat the Bartonella, okay, with your herbal antibiotics. And number 4, brain health. Does Lyme plus create acquired brain injury? Well, so Lyme and Bartonella predominantly can lead to brain injury. So yeah, I guess the way you say that, I'm trying to understand what you mean by acquired. But yes, you can get injury from your infections. Therefore, you can have acquired injury. Yes, I would agree with that. And the way you deal with that is to remove the insult. So get your infections out. All right. And then some basic things you can do to repair brain injury include using glutathione. And that would be to do 1 teaspoon, or the tri-fortified product glutathione, a teaspoonful once or twice a day. I also have somebody lower the cytokine inflammation by using curcumin. That also lowers a brain inflammatory chemical called quinolinic acid, and that's 500 milligrams 3 times a day. And if you get your infections under control after about 6 months and you're using glutathione and you're using curcumin and you're still not making headway with your brain symptoms, then I would consider adding in a peptide called cerebopep, which is made up of something called cerebrolysin, and it's a peptide that is made by the brain to help with brain injury. Okay, and I would do that as 1 pill twice a day and give it a 3-month trial to see if it's going to make a difference. Okay, all right. Let me show you that cerebopep product, and actually, let me show you an article I have on peptides as well too. All right, so in terms of peptides and what they can do and how to use them and which ones you can use orally and for what, take a look at my article here. Oops, not that article. What am I doing? Oh, there we go. Take a look at my immune system section and take a look at I'm not finding it here. Hold on a minute. I'm just going to type peptides up here. All right. So here's my article called on peptides, and you can find, put peptides in my search bar. You'll find it. Okay. And I walk you through the key things that peptides can do. And here's my description of cerebrolysin. The product that has cerebrolysin in it is called cerebopep. Okay. And in terms of peptides, the brand that I like that offers oral peptides is a product line called Integrative Peptides. And here's a variety of peptides they offer. And then here is the cerebopep that I was just describing to you. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Don. Thanks for the question. Hello, Mark. It's Dr. Ross. I've recently prescribed Hizentro, which treats primary immune deficiency with subcutaneous infusions. While the improvements in energy and reduction in chronic sinus infections have been welcome, I have had a couple episodes of what seems like mast cell activation syndrome. The symptoms were consistent with those listed in your mast cell activation syndrome, with notable exceptions of weight loss and low blood pressure. My immunologist did run a panel that included tryptase, but it was several weeks after the symptoms had resolved, and the results were unremarkable. I'm being treated for asthma with inhaled steroids. and I had to increase dosage during the aforementioned episodes. Any suggestions? Welcome and greatly appreciated. All right. Hold on a minute. I want to look up that medication here real quick. Just a minute. Okay. So you're getting human immunoglobulins. All right. And one of the things that can happen when we give immunoglobulins, either as IV, is this one IV or is this one a pill? I bet it's inject. Oh, you already told me it's injection. When we get part of the problem with immunoglobulins is it is possible that some of the components in the immunoglobulin preparation will trigger allergic type reactions. And that can give you the mast cell symptoms, basically. What I would suggest doing is doing some things to stabilize your mast cells. And what I want to let you know is when you test for mast cell activation by measuring histamines, measuring prostaglandin levels, measuring tryptase, you only have a chance that the test will find it if you're really active when the blood test is drawn. And even so, you may still not be positive. Mast cell activation is something you treat primarily based more on what the symptoms tell you, okay? And so some things to think about. You've read my article on mast cell activation. I would follow some of the steps in there. Number one, decrease stress, because stress activates your mast cells. Number two, remove histamine producing foods from your diet. Okay. Number three, remove anything that might be allergy triggering in you from your diet. And that includes food items as well too. Number four, do things to stabilize your mast cells. All right. And so what I like using for that is quercetin as a starting point. 250 milligrams, 2 pills, 3 times a day is what I would do there. You may want to also think about using low-dose naltrexone as part of that too, because again, as I mentioned earlier, it stabilizes mast cells by binding to a toll receptor on the mast cells. All right. The other things you can do if that's not enough is start antihistamines, which will block histamines after they're made by the mast cells. And you could do things like Zyrtec is an option as well there too. All right. So those are some things to think about. And then finally, if you're still having a hard time and that's not all working, and this is like months down the road, you can consider adding a peptide called KPV. And that would be a couple pills twice a day or a couple sprays twice a day. You can get it either way. And you could look at my integrated peptides page for that one as well too. Okay. So I know that you've read my article on mast cells, so that a lot of these steps are in there, but I would follow those steps. Okay. All right. Good luck to you. Hello, NLC. What are your thoughts on IVIG? I have Lyme, Babees, Bartonella, and have been treating with antibiotics and herbs, but without much improvement. I was also diagnosed with autoimmune dysautonomia and autoimmune vestibular. Thank you. So generally, so we were just talking, that last question was dealing with immunoglobulins or in your case, IVIG, all right? So I like using them primarily if somebody has one of two conditions. One is a known immune dysfunction that is antibody insufficiency, and there's documentation of it, and then using it to correct that. Okay. Number two, if somebody has skin biopsy results that show that they have neuropathy known as small fiber neuropathy, IVIG can help with that as well too. All right. In most other situations, I prefer not to use IVIG. And the reason is the way that IVIG is made is basically made from a pooled collection of a lot of donations of antibodies from people. All right. And even though they do their best to screen for possible infections, I don't want a risk of giving my patients any kind of other infections, whether they're thought to be minor virus infections or not, or whatever. I just don't want to take the chance. So that's my approach to doing it. Okay. All right. And so if you were to get it for Bartonella, Babesia, and you're not having documented antibody deficiency and you're not having small fiber illness, I just don't see any real benefits, to be honest with you, nor do I think it's worth the risk involved in doing it too. All right. Thanks for the question, Anna. Hello, Leslie. Hold on here a minute. I so appreciated your webinars and watched them on repeat on YouTube. Wow. I think I need to get syndicated and see if we could have these show up on major television then too. I appreciate that. I'm glad you're getting benefit from it. What a wealth of easy to understand information. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see. I've been treating Lyme, Bart, Babesia, and mold for a little over 2 years. Current protocol includes amoxicillin, Bactrim, clarithromycin, cryptolepis, itraconazole, nasal spray, mold binders, and other mold killers. My doctor and I think I've plateaued in my progress at about 70% better. When I try to wean off antibiotics, my symptoms come back very quickly. Top symptoms that come and go: pain and stiffness, especially on bottoms of the feet and on palms of hands, digestive issues, and fatigue. A couple months ago, we tested for parasites and I started treating for Giardia and Cryptosporidium. This has made a little more improvement, but not much. Is there anything you would switch up? I wonder if I should switch up my antibiotics or maybe treat for Candida. I've never tolerated probiotics, and I do test high on your Candida test. Yeah. It is so, when you stop your antimicrobials from what you're written here, hold on here. So your current protocol is amoxicillin, Bactrim, clarithromycin, cryptolepis, and other mold killers. Okay, so keep in mind your mold killers also kill yeast. Okay, so it is to really sort through all of this. I would need to ask you a bunch of questions, which I can't do in this format, as you know. But it is possible the reason you decline as you come off of antimicrobials is you're losing the killing benefit of one of those or all of them. And the most likely thing you'd be losing the killing benefit is too many yeast in your intestines. Because if you've been on all of these bacterial antibiotics over time, there's a great likelihood you also have too many yeast living in your intestines. If you've done my screening questionnaire for yeast and you score over 140, what I would suggest doing in a situation like this is treating for intestinal yeast, and you probably still could continue your amoxicillin, Bactrim, clarithromycin, and cryptolepis. But regarding your mold killers, I would look at changing those to either itraconazole or amphotericin B. These are very useful at getting at yeast overgrowth in the intestines, and try it for a couple months. Then try to do weaning off of your other antimicrobials and see how that goes. Now, I'm just giving you a basic outline. Again, it's tempered by the fact that I don't really get to ask you a bunch of questions. Okay. All right. But I would agree there might be a risk of too many yeast in your intestines. Let me show you my article on how to diagnose too many yeast and also various treatment options you have for too many yeast as well too. All right, so take a look back at using my online Lyme guide. Take a look at my yeast section here. Okay, and in this article called "A Silent Problem, Is It Yeast?" you can find my questionnaire, and it's right here under the video, this right here, this yeast screening questionnaire. Click on that. if you score 140 or higher, there's a risk that you have too many yeast, okay? And then in terms of what do you do then if you have too many yeast, I lay out various options that you can use to treat too many yeast in this article here, okay? Kills and Prevents Yeast, a brief guide, okay? And in here, I talk about specifically about amphotericin that I mentioned and itraconazole as well too, okay? Thanks for that question, Leslie. All right. Hello, Kelly. Let's see. Good evening, Dr. Ross. I have been treating immunoblock confirmed babesia for 4 months now. Firstly, with solely cryptolepis, which dramatically reduced my nocturnal tachycardia, but I now suffering from terrible internal vibrations, which constantly disrupt my sleep and are quite distressing. You previously mentioned that these are often associated with Bartonella. Is that always the case, or can they be babesia also? My IGeneX for Bartonella was inconclusive. Can you become immune to cryptolepis when treated constantly with it? Should it be pulsed? For those treating herbally only, what would you suggest to combat these vibrations? Is there a supplement that is particularly good at quelling them? All right. So I have not seen this internal vibrations where you feel like you're buzzing or vibrating, and it's only something you feel. It isn't something that's visible to you, like if you hold your hand up or others looking at you, okay? And I have seen that mostly with Bartonella. I have not seen that as a symptom I described with babesia, all right? Regarding the immunoblot, for Bartonella, it can find Bartonella when it's there about 95% of the time, but it's not perfect. And so I would go, given that you're having all those vibrations, if you're my patient, what I would do is I'd want to ask you a bunch of other symptoms to see if you have other symptoms suggesting Bartonella, okay? And those are pain on the soles of the feet. So often that's a type of pain that will get better as you walk it off first thing in the morning, okay? Bartonella is known for giving a lot of neuropsych symptoms. In particular, people often have just ongoing anxiety, not panic attack anxiety like we see in babesia, but ongoing anxiety with you all the time. They may have depression. They may hallucinate. People with Bartonella often have neuropathies. So it could be numbness, tingling, could be nerve pain, which would be sharp shooting, stabbing, burning, piercing, electrical type pains. And then sometimes people with Bartonella have a stretch mark type rash. And then finally, Bartonella is known for giving significant cognitive brain dysfunction as well too. All right. And if you have a number of those, you said yes. If you said yes to a number of those things I just said, then I would probably cover for Bartonella as well too. Now, keep in mind, cryptolepis can treat Bartonella, but usually when you're treating for Bartonella, you want to use other agents in addition to cryptolepis. You want to, well, anytime you treat Bartonella, you usually find the best regimens involve 2 or 3 things, okay? All right. What you might, just based on what you've written here, okay? Again, I'm limited because I don't get to ask you a bunch of questions, all right? But if I were to take this treatment that seemed to have been doing really well for your babesia, but now you're getting these vibrations, I would probably still keep treating for babesia with the cryptolepis. But to add in more coverage for Bartonella, I would consider adding in Japanese knotweed. So crypto and Japanese knotweed are both good for growing and persister Bartonella, all right? In addition, I would add in liposomal cinnamon clove oregano capsules, and that would be 1 capsule twice a day. And that's because they break down Bartonella biofilm, and in addition, they treat growing and persisting Bartonella as well too. And I would see how you do on that for a while, right? So sometimes when you got this question if you have Bartonella, you just start treating for it to see, do the symptoms resolve, all right? But to answer your question, no, I usually don't. I have not seen vibrating buzzing in babesia. I just haven't seen it. Doesn't mean it can't occur. I haven't seen it, and I haven't seen it reported anywhere either, okay? And then regarding cryptolepis, I just don't see people get resistant to it. There are times after they knock out the easy Babesia with it, sometimes you need to add artemisinin to start treating a little stronger for your Babesia. But given what you've said here, I think I would be looking more at adding coverage for Bartonella here. Okay. All right. All right. Good luck. Hello, Sandra. Hi, Dr. Marty. Thank you. You're welcome. Can you share your thoughts on Dr. Zhang protocol for NYC or from NYC? I was going to say, what is NYC? But now I know New York City. For Babesia, Bartonella, and Lyme, one is a garlic extract and one contains Artemisia. Thanks. I know of a number of, so Dr. Zhang is a very good herbalist. He's a Chinese medicine doctor, and he has more of a Chinese medicine-oriented way to treat for tick-borne infections. I do not have enough useful experience in people that have tried his protocol to give you a % chance it will work. I just don't know. What I can report is I have had a number of people try his protocol that got good benefits, okay? There are also some that got no benefits. So I can't give you what my opinion is as in terms of success rate. I do think the things that he has in his protocol make sense, that they would be in his protocol and that they should work. And I think he's a good doc. Okay. So anyhow, there you go. Thanks for the question. Hello, Aaron. Let's see. Good evening, doctor. I found your site last month, and it's really helpful to have a whole overview of the topic of Lyme. Thank you. Good. I'm glad you're getting benefit. I would like to ask, is there a correlation between severity of symptoms and the treatment duration until significant improvement in your practice? What was the shortest and longest time needed to reach remission? Yeah, it's a good question. You would think that the people with the worst symptoms will take the longest. And I would say the more severe your symptoms are, there is a chance it may take longer than some people. However, I have seen people in my practice that had the severe symptoms for years, like say 10, 15, 20 years. And I put them on 4 months of antibiotics and they were done. They got completely well. That's rare, but it can happen, okay? But in general, the longer you have had it and the more severe your symptoms are, means the longer it's going to take to reach remission, okay? An average amount of time when you have Borrelia as your main infection is going to be about 1 to 2 years. That may get complicated if you have Bartonella Babesia thrown in. You may start talking 2 to 3 years, unfortunately. It takes time to get these things under control, unfortunately. All right. Good luck to you. Thank you for the question. Hello, Ken. Marty, are you getting this email? You say that chat box is at the lower right. On my computer, chat seems to be the upper right. Thanks, Ken. Yes, I got it. I'm probably getting to this towards the end since you wrote it because I've already had a lot of questions that went through. But so it's interesting. On my side of the platform, it shows up on the lower right side. You're saying it's showing on the upper right-hand side of yours. I think they may have flipped that around, but thank you for letting me know that. Hello, Allie. How important is it to get tested for all the different possible co-infections? For example, I never got tests for Bartonella, but I've gotten bitten by tons of fleas and mosquitoes in my life. I feel it's likely I have it. Do you recommend rigorous testing for everything, or should I just start some herbs for it? So treating tick-borne infections can be complicated, all right? And even though you have symptoms that say you have a tick-borne infection, you may have something else, all right? That doesn't mean if you have strong feelings based on your symptoms that you have Bartonella that you couldn't start treating for it, but you may not be treating the right thing. So I think it's always useful to do testing to see if you're doing the right thing. Now, I will admit, even if you do the best testing out there, I think these days is the immunoblot type testing that's offered through IGeneX, which for Bartonella, Babesia, and Borrelia can find it if you have it about 95% of the time. But that means it misses it 5% of the time too. What I have found in recommending testing, though, is that given that these conditions can take a long time to recover sometimes, if you're treating and you're not getting better and you think, am I doing the right thing? It's easier to keep going forward if you have a positive test supporting you along the way. It's just easier, okay? But when it comes to diagnosing these infections, there's 4 things we look at. Number 1, is there a risk you could have gotten it? All right. The biggest risk for Borrelia would be if you have tick-borne of getting Borrelia would be a tick bite. All right. For Bartonella, it could be tick bite, but it could also be mosquitoes and biting sandflies, et cetera, as you mentioned. Okay. All right. And then for Babesia, it's probably going to be more ticks. All right. So you look and see, do you have risk of having had tick exposures or getting it? All right. Number 2. Do you have a number of the symptoms that suggest the illness? So as I mentioned earlier tonight, there's a specific set of symptoms that make us wonder about Bartonella. And for Babesia, there's a specific list of symptoms that make us wonder about Babesia, right? So if you have enough Bartonella or you have enough Babesia symptoms to confirm that a person has those, I would test for them. But let's say you have a lot of the fatigue and achiness that we see with Lyme, and you don't have any other symptoms that point to Bartonella, and you don't have any other symptoms that point to Babesia, I don't necessarily test for those right away. But let's say I have somebody that has a history of a tick bite, they got achiness, fatigue, and brain dysfunction, and on top of that, they've got night sweats and shortness of breath and panic attacks. Well, that night sweats, shortness of breath, and panic attacks is probably Babesia, but I might test for that because their symptoms tell me to look for it, okay? All right? So that's a way of kind of tailoring, all right? So if you're wondering what symptoms look like Bartonella, what symptoms look like Lyme, what symptoms look like Babesia, let's do a screen share. All right, so take a look. I have a section here called How to Diagnose, all right? And in my How to Diagnose Bartonella article, you can find the list of symptoms. In my How to Diagnose Chronic Lyme Disease, I refer people to take a look actually at the Horowitz questionnaire, but you can find reference to it here. For Babesia, I list out a group of symptoms here, okay? So take a look at these articles, and that will help point you if you have enough symptoms, then you might want to either treat or test to confirm you actually have the diagnosis, okay? All right. Thanks for the question, Alan. Good luck to you. Hello, Frank. Hi, Dr. Ross. I purchased a product from your store, but found that I had a previous adverse reaction with one of the ingredients. Could I return the product for a refund? So the way my refund policy, and I mean, you could have written us through my store. You didn't have to show up on the webinar to ask this, Frank. But my refund policy is to take back. I will take back products on return if they're unopened. All right. But if they're opened, I can't take them back. So yeah, I mean, if you did not open that product, you could return it. I'll just do a quick screen share here for you. All right, so at my store, on the home page, if you scroll down here, you can find our shipping and return address. Okay, so you would go to the home page, and then you could mail it back to Marty Ross MD Supplements. My shipping center is in Austin, Texas. Okay, but in the future, if you want to get a hold of us about returning a product, you can either email us at this email address here, or call us at one of these 2 telephone numbers here. Okay. My customer service people can help you with that without any problem. All right. All right. Good luck to you, Frank. Thanks for the question. Hello, Ali. Again, let's see. Question 2. For people with chronic disseminated Lyme, is it possible to get rid of it completely, or will it always be in the body and you just have to manage it? So the answer is yes. Even if you've had it for decades and you have severe symptoms, there are many people that can get rid of it, okay? And generally, when you treat, about 85% of people can get well. There are 15% of people that then go on to this category called chronic Lyme disease. And of those people with chronic Lyme disease, meaning, the recommendation from the infectious disease doctors is 1 month of antibiotics. And if you should get cured, okay? That does work for about 85% of people. But if you fail that initial 1 month of antibiotics and you're not doing well, you're in that 15% that probably has more chronic tick-borne infections, all right? And in that group, about 85% of people can eventually get well. Now, that may mean that they eradicate the germ entirely, or it may mean that we knock the germ load down enough that their immune system steps in and keeps everything under control. So in that 85%, again, that becomes chronic and then gets better, all right, they can get better, right? Then there's 15% in that group that goes on to get chronic. We just have not found a way to help them yet, unfortunately. And but that's a very small percentage of people that get tick-borne illnesses. Okay, all right. Good luck, Allie. All right. So let me just do one more screen share here. Let's see here. All right. So many of you are aware of my online group called Lyme United, and you can read about it here. Okay. So Lyme United, this is the page that describes it. And then there is a website for Lyme United. And this is the website. So Lyme United is an online support group that I'm running. It's a membership-based group. And we are currently offering 1 month free trial if you want to try it and see if it's right for you. In here, we have many useful forums. First of all, we've got a forum where members can talk with each other. My role is just to make sure that they're doing safe things, but people learn a lot from each other and give each other great support here, okay? There's another forum called Share Your Wins on Wednesdays where we all learn from the success of other people. There's a daily office hours with Marty Ross MD where I spend an hour Monday to Friday writing responses to people who write questions to me. There is a webinar, a live webinar I host once a week. It's an hour and a half, and we do it in a Zoom room so that I can ask you questions and you can ask me questions. And our panel of experts, which a lot of our people that are in this membership group are a lot of experts, are good people. They really know their illness and the ins and outs well. They contribute as well too. And that's called Ask Marty Ross MD Live. And then finally, we have a section called Unities Take Charge. And this is a section where members can host their own events as well too. All right. Now, I invite you to join us. And if you want to join us, you would take a look at my Lyme United page here. And the reason I enjoy you is I know that many of you keep showing up again and again to these Ask Marty Ross or the Conversations with Marty Ross MD Live. What I would tell you, if you're getting benefit out of my free webinars, the Lyme United would be like my free webinars on steroids. I mean, you're going to get a lot more out of me and also people with like-minded approaches in terms of the people that I have joined this group so far. We're now sitting at about 60 members. My goal is to try to reach 200 members. We opened up about 6 months ago, so it's a growing group. And at this point, trying to help it grow, we got free memberships for a free trial period of a month. So I invite you to join us. See if you get some benefit with this too. Okay. All right. Go back here. All right, everyone. That's it for me for tonight. Thank you for bearing with my sales pitch for the membership group, but I think it's something very useful. I think you'll like it. Our members are very happy that are there and they're getting a lot of useful information out of it. Keep your eye out in the email tomorrow morning. Later this evening, I will edit up the video for tonight's recorded webinar. And if everything goes well, I'll get it out to you tomorrow morning. I am tied up in the morning having to manage getting my father back into his assisted living suite that I'm in right now in Colorado. But I should try to have the edited version of the video out to you somewhere around 11-ish Colorado Springs time, Mountain Standard Time tomorrow. Okay. And when you get that email from me, you'll have an opportunity to sign up for next week's webinar, which I hope to be doing back in Austin, Texas, where I belong. But that all depends on how Dad does here. Okay. All right, everyone. Good night.